Awesome. Thanks for being here again. And yeah, today I'll be talking about like the how we built UX Plus University, why we chose no code. Essentially, not much of definitions of what no code is, but generally my own experience, why I chose it, which could hopefully inspire you to use it for your own products, whether you fully immerse yourself in no code or just try it out, even for syncing things or making your own lives easier, regardless of the application. Like, would love to share some of our no code stack that made us get to where we are now. So I can start with my presentation if everyone's ready. Turn on your videos if you can, so I can see some faces and not just profile photos. Always good to see real people. Hello, non-shy people. Thanks for being here. All right, so I'll share my screen. So look at everyone else before I do so, so you can see who you like. We can feel like as if we're in the same room. Yeah, great. So one third open their videos. That's good enough for me. So let me share my screen for now. So give me a second. You can see my screen, right? Cool. So let me give me a second again so I can see your faces again. 1 second. Yeah, welcome everyone. So again today, I'll be talking about how to build with no code, or how to build a startup without hiring an engineer. Welcome, thanks for being here again. And today, some background on me. What is UX Plus University, or like what did I set out to do with no code, and then maybe answer along the way why no code is the way to go, at least for us, and then our no code stack. So I'll be sharing my no code stack, like walking through each part of it, and then also how we how we were able to build a startup without hiring an engineer, and hopefully that can inspire you to get started. So goal for today, just start. That's enough of a goal. Hopefully you can just with this talk you can play around even with Zapier or any other tool, even without experience. So who am I? My background, I'm Christian San Jose. I'm a designer mostly. So I'm not an engineer. I'm not a developer. I wish I was, but I'm I've fared well enough so far. So yeah, like throughout my career, I've done different things. So right now, I'm the CEO of UX Plus, which includes a UX Plus conference and the university. Previously, I was head of design at First Circle. I caught one of the last meetups of Product PH when I believe one of our VP of product talked at Product PH. A bunch of people came to the First Circle office, which was awesome. Before that, I was mostly in the agency world, and before that, I started my own web design shop. So I was mostly known for doing websites like these, like back then in 2011, 2015, official websites and branding of Kobe Bryant and his foundation, logos and books and websites for Dwayne Wade, the a website for Usher, which only he can log into. So essentially, he goes into this website, picks clothes that he already owns, adds it to a cart. That cart gets sent to his stylist, and then the stylist sends whatever Usher chooses to wherever Usher is around the world. So we were solving an Usher problem, a very specific Usher problem. That's what we were solving here. Designed some album covers for him as well. Designed the official websites of Usain Bolt. Fast forward to a couple of years, or 3 or 4 years after that, like I co-founded a UX agency with Sachi and Sachi called Mick, and we were able to do fun things for fun clients. UX work, UI work, research work for clients like these. So from smart home applications to websites. Uh, Fast forward. Okay, and then also websites for different clients as well. Again, as mentioned before that, I worked in a fintech startup. Sorry, after that, I worked in a fintech startup, which was for Circle, where we help small businesses get access to loans quicker and faster, hopefully, than how they do it with banks. So now I'm the founder and CEO of UX Plus. This was last year's event, and then also the photo on the very right is last year's event in 2019. Sorry, we had a bunch of awesome speakers. Also, we just launched UX Plus Conference 2021, where we have amazing speakers as well, like Jake Knapp, author of the Design Sprint book, and many others from Amazon, Facebook, Adobe, Spotify, Shopify, LinkedIn, Netflix, Agoda. So if you're not doing anything on September 10th to 12th, might be good for you to visit the site, check it out. If you're interested, you can get a ticket as well. So all of these, like what I'm demoing right now, is actually built with no code, like no developer, no engineers, just me, just launching a site. And now this is what I'm focused on, UX Plus University, where we teach UX to anyone that's interested to get into a UX career without having to pay upfront for their tuition fee. So essentially, they can choose to pay upfront if they can afford it, or they can apply and still get in, and they can essentially, if they want to, if they opted for that income share agreement or that ISA, they can learn UX in 4 months and only pay after they get hired. So we partnered with many companies like Paymaya, Globe, Gcash, Education.ph, many startups, Paymongo, what else? Send It, what else? Many startups, local startups, and also foreign startups, Grab Singapore, and many others. So our main goal is to get students hired. Essentially, that's what hopefully separates us from other educational platforms or educational institutions. Our goal is to produce great UX practitioners. Even though they're at a junior level for now, that's the course we're offering. Will produce hopefully better students than if you were hiring for UX for a junior role, if you considered elsewhere. So that's what I set out to do. And then also we were able to pitch this idea to the final pitch, which was awesome. We were able to get funding, which we'll announce pretty soon. Takes a while. Takes a while for funding conversations to finally close, but yeah, we were supported by UBX, which is awesome. And also Globe wanted to invest. I chose UBX. So yeah, so how did I come up with this idea? Like, how did I get here? I don't know. Maybe I just watched a bunch of Shark Tank YouTube videos and on TV. Maybe that's why I got it. I eventually ended up starting my own startup. I always wanted to build a startup, but I had no idea what problem should I be solving. What is it? Traffic? Is it like that seems to be a big problem. I had experience in First Circle, so maybe loans or like a loans aggregator. I don't know. E-commerce, travel. I love traveling. Maybe I could solve travel some way. Freelancing. I used to be a freelancer before. I used to be in the agency world before. Maybe there's something I could do in that marketplace. I never actually ended up with much of a other than the idea or like a bunch of notes on Apple Notes. I never really got and also maybe doing the logo. I didn't never really got far with just starting my own. Um, and I came to a point where I resigned from First Circle in the middle of the pandemic last year, and I wanted to do something. So Maybe it's not a startup, maybe it's not a tech startup specifically, but I reverted to what I knew, which was generally UX. Like I wanted to teach UX, and the very first version of the idea was I'm already teaching UX. I'm already like at this time, maybe 2 years ago or 2 3 years ago, was already conducting workshops. So why not do a pre-recorded course? Seems easy enough. Seems like very straightforward. Like started designing something that was around the idea of a $100 course on usability testing. It's all pre-recorded. They get access to all the videos. Seems straightforward. And this was the early iterations or early versions of what UX Plus University was. Like all the way to high fidelity mockups. Like we did the research, seems fine. We were writing the course materials. We were ready to record, and up until I already even got instructors to build the courses, the pre-recorded courses with me. Like I already had the UI UX crash course, maybe also teach visual development with Webflow since I knew how to do Webflow. So like the train was already moving. Essentially, I wanted to do this. Like all I had to do was just start recording. Like we had the script, we had the curriculum, everything ready, and seems pretty cheap. So like probably will do me well to a certain point. Like I'll have a lifestyle business, maybe not a startup, but maybe enough to keep me alive for a couple of months before I find my next job.
That
But then, like I always wanted to apply to Y Combinator too, and but through applying to Y Combinator, I realized that my original idea, which was pre-recorded courses, wouldn't really work, at least in the eyes of the investor. So when you go to Y Combinator, they ask you very specific questions like how long have you been working on this, why should we invest in you, are people using your product, how many active customers do you have, yeah, valuable customers. So they're looking at scalable startups, not really pre-recorded courses. And then after watching a bunch of I guess startup school videos, it didn't really work. Like, okay, well, if the price point should be this so that I could scale my business, etc., etc., etc. Basically, I ended up, okay, they won't fund me if I applied with this idea, with this idea. Like the it's gonna take hundreds, thousands of people paying $100 before I even get to a point where it's venture fundable, or it's venture backable. Um, so I had to throw my idea. And actually, as I was like writing my application, the change or the pivot happened within this application, because okay, like if I'm gonna think about it deeper, I should probably answer this as if I was writing the big vision already, not what I have or not what I planned, but really what they could invest on. So what are the things out there that they would invest on? So I heard about Lambda School, I heard about different cohort-based courses, and also boot camps, mostly engineering coding boot camps. And I researched a lot and eventually found a compelling reason to, or compelling problem that I could solve. So, and then I wrote, like, as with any person, as with anyone that loves sharing online, I wrote on LinkedIn, and then it caught fire, like 17,000 views. Never even had more than 1,000 views, or like maybe 1,500 before this. And like essentially I was writing the same thing, like what I was gonna write in the new application to Y Combinator, of like the problems with education, specifically UX education in Southeast Asia. So essentially, like once I felt very passionate, like as with UX, right? You have to fall in love with a problem. I was really mostly falling in love with my solution of a pre-recorded course. But then once I thought about, okay, like this, I should this is a compelling problem, and this is what I should be falling in love with, and there must be something here. So say for example, like some tidbits in here would be UX bootcamps. A quick search on UX bootcamps in Southeast Asia is $6,000 to $18,000 for the tuition fee. Average salary is 17,000. So the problem is just even in the first two paragraphs, like in the Philippines, like we know it's even $10,000 a year, or like maybe $12,000 a year for a junior designer salary. And if you look at pay scale UX designer salaries, they'll say probably 17,000, and then in the States they'll say 40,000, right, for a junior designer. Really, like I'm looking at the Philippines, so I should probably solve for the Philippines first. So knowing that, like if it drops all the way to $12,000, like there's a compelling argument to be made here. If the opportunity to learn UX is this expensive, and then the salary is this, there's like a misalignment there. And then also, if you opted to go the other route, which is Skillshare or Udemy or like anything else, they only have a 67% completion rate according to studies. There's a big disparities. There are big disparities in perception and activity across different UX communities. So I try to research on, okay, are UX communities active? Like, what are the learning opportunities? How can people be mentored? And I looked inward towards my problems as well. Like, how did I get to UX? Like, I was a graphic designer, and then I self-studied. So essentially, if I was going to restart now, where should I go? Like, where should I get affordable or accessible world-class UX education so that I can find a job? Given that there's many people hiring, there's like 1,000 people if you do a Google search, LinkedIn search in the Philippines, right? Like there's in Southeast Asia, or I'm not sure if it's Philippines or Southeast Asia, but there are 1,000 jobs. I think that might be in the Philippines if you just search UX or UX designer. So of course, if you split it, there's senior UX practitioners and then there's junior roles, but then that's still a lot, right? A lot of unfulfilled jobs without formal education, without possibly focused UX education locally, and possibly even in Vietnam or other countries that are in a similar state as our UX education. So, okay, like there's a problem to be solved here. This seems super compelling. And like this is my prototype, like the the LinkedIn post of people agreeing, and of course that's just an idea, right? Like it's not valid until you launch something. So let's start to launch something. And I've been doing this again, like even prior to this, even prior to me thinking of the idea. Like I was doing 5-hour courses to a room of 30 people once a month or twice a month. I was trying to teach UX, and then they came there to transition to a UX career, which was super weird. Like they wanted a 5-hour course to essentially learn UX or like be refreshed or figure out like what UX is all about, which is kind of a difficult um, uh, thing if you think about it. Like you want a 5-hour course to learn UX. It's not like probably like how you learn is if you apply or if you learn from mentors. It's not just like a 5-hour course. But I was part of the problem essentially. Like I was selling UX 5-hour crash courses, and then but I wasn't really getting to the outcome. So if you think of UX, it's all outcome based, right? Like you shouldn't really think of the output. The output are the screens. The output is the maybe the design system or the research report. Those are output. The outcome is a changed life of someone because they used your product, right? Like even if you build any website right now, they don't really want to go there because of your brand or go there because of your solution. They're going there to solve their problem. So, okay, I wasn't really solving the problem for all of these people. So there was some, mostly from my own experience, some evidence that this is a problem. We launched UX Plus conference and people are going. So there seems to be reasons, and then people are going to be inspired, but also there are possibly, if I'm not mistaken, 15-20% that are not UX practitioners. So they might be wanting to transition to UX career or introduce UX methods, but they don't have the capability or the ability or the social context or the physical context or physical environment or the motivation to do so. And whatever, like whether it's comes from me, from my own efforts, or whether it comes from like my research, there seems to be a big problem. Like I was part of the problem. I was selling UX courses, and then I started mentoring people for 3 months at a time, and like that was mostly apparent. Like I understood that okay, they really want to transition to UX career. They don't just want advice on their career. They really want to be UX practitioners. Like whether it's like figuring out how to do Figma, whether it's like figuring out to do their own career, like figuring out their 1 year goal and things like that. So okay, I have some valid reasons, like from one-on-one conversations with people to evidence from my courses, evidence from UX Plus conference, and then research, like market research, and then also like just trying to understand it. So I pivoted to this new idea that to learn UX, it's not just about listening to the lectures. It's about community, mentorship, it's learning from others, it's applying your learnings right away, and then failing from that, and then learning from it, and then learning again, and then access to career opportunities. Like you don't want to just come out and then not be assisted or not be guided in terms of finding a job. It's not just about the hard skills, it's also about how you sell yourself, how you work with a team, and all of that packaged in hopefully uh, um, a way to serve this education more accessibly. Like not everyone's gonna have the money, so okay, like this is the problem statement. And given like while I was thinking about all of this, like learning more about it, this was last year, like mid last year, I was already learning no code to an extent. Like we were doing UX Plus Conference 2020 last year, and I was a fan of no code. Like I use Zapier, like just to create, for example, certificates of attendance for UX Plus Conference last year. So like I didn't want to hire an engineer. Seems pretty easy if I click around, like if I explore, dabble around in no code enough. So hey, why not do it? I mean, I knew how to do Webflow, so I knew there was a form submission. Uh, I knew how to do the certificate generators. Like I taught myself on my own. It's just basically, oh, if this app talks to another app, I can produce things in between, or like I can make them talk to different things in between. So basically, in this like certificate generator, like the simplest version of no code is basically I'm using Google Slides to so in the Google Slides I have an image there. What gets changed in that image is just the name and then the 2020 070, right? Like the certificate ID. So if there's a name and then there's an ID, I could probably have those details in an Airtable. And then if I have an Airtable, which could be just Google Slides for all that matters, like if it's a spreadsheet, I can import the list of attendees of UX Plus conference, put it in Airtable or wherever you want it, like any spreadsheet you want that's online. So in this case, Airtable, I can have all the emails there. I can have all the names there, first name, last name, or even like within Airtable, you can break down first name, last names if you're savvy enough. I can generate an auto number like in a different column that generates basically the certificate number. So auto number, every line adds +1 basically. So it's like basic Excel computation or like basic Google Sheets computation, right? So I have the number, I have the first name, I have the last name, and then I can form a full name from it, so I can bind the two fields just within Airtable. And then essentially, when there's a form submission in Webflow, they're gonna write either their own name or like yeah, like, or look, there could be a lookup of their own access passes, and then it creates a record on Airtable. It assigns it to the field, and then you get those data from Airtable to create a presentation in Google Slides. And then once a presentation in Google Slides, essentially, there's it exports many things, the slides itself, but it also always exports a PDF version, so you can like scrape the data from within even Zapier. Like you can get that URL of that PDF and then send that PDF, like send the PDF in Gmail. So I can walk you through that if you're interested later on. But essentially, it's super easy. Probably, actually, I can walk through that now if you want. UX Plus conference. It's somewhere here. Where's the certificate generator? So this no code, basically making like just like APIs. If you talk to your engineers, basically there's a form submission on Webflow. Then there's a trigger that this is a site name, this is a generator, create a record on Airtable. The action is basically try to find the name, find the access pass, um, and then basically get that record, set up the action. So basically, certificate of attendance, get that field full name on Airtable. That's the title of the presentation. Make it shared, and then use the full name for the full name field in Google Slides. So in Google Slides, just to like the variable that you're replacing. Basically, it's this. Here, it teaches you, even in Zapier itself, it teaches you how to do it. So just do anything here, and then it's gonna pull it, and it's gonna show you here as full name. So I had 2 curly brackets, full name, curly bracket out, and then it pulls it here, and then pulls the number here, which I generated from Airtable, which is awesome. Quick, done. Send it in Gmail. So get the fields like the name and then the email, and then say that blah blah. Hi, thank you for attending UX Plus conference. And then I'm attaching this, like the PDF export. So if you look at the icon there, that's from Google Sites. That's a PDF export. So it's attached to that email. Super easy, barely any inconvenience. So yeah, like super easy. I was doing that. I was playing around. So hey, I can possibly do this idea. Like I can do all of this. I can teach UX in a cohort-based course with community mentorship, all of these learnings. Cohort-based course meaning it's live lectures, part-time, for 2 days in a week, and then 5 hours on a Saturday morning, and then everything in between are office hours or mastermind groups where students talk to each other. They can book sessions with their mentors. Like all of these learnings, I could package and then I could put into something that might actually work. Because one, like I could do the Zooms and the classes itself, but like for it to be a scalable or like a fundable business, I have to have some technology. So how do I build all of this? And maybe I can use no code. Yeah, let's try it. And during the same time, like I applied for on deck no code because like I just love no code. Like I was following more no code people rather than the designers. I was a designer, but I was falling in love with the capabilities of no code, or what you could do by just connecting applications together. At the center of it is possibly just Zapier or Integromat or whatever connector you want to use. Zapier could be the easiest, and then also Airtable, and then whatever SaaS platform is out there, whether it's Webflow or Shopify or whatever you want. Whether it's Slack, whenever someone orders from your e-commerce store, you get a Slack message, you get an auto email, like you can connect all of that. So I was falling in love with no code that I applied for a cohort for On Deck, which was the On Deck No Code Fellowship. Their first fellowship of no code practitioners. I got a scholarship for that. Like I only paid 25% of their fee. So you could do all of that. Like I mean, there's nothing stopping you from applying and then just seeing how you can learn, and then just meeting people and learning from others as well. So I wanted to learn from them, not just the no code stuff, but also how they run cohort-based courses, and also share like what I know as a UX practitioner to a bunch of no code founders. So yeah, like after that, like eventually I also joined On Deck Design, the On Deck Design Fellowship, which was awesome as well. So I knew what to do: a cohort-based course, live courses, live lectures, because that's how people learn best. If we can teach them and then we can test them, then they can fail or they can succeed, and then we can give them advice and then do a bunch of loops, 16 loops of learning and failing, or learning and learning and learning, right? But I didn't know how to do it, or maybe I knew in the back of my head, like I didn't know the stack, I didn't plan all of it. So I just played around with my arsenal. Like I knew possibly Zapier can help me figure this out, and maybe I could do it through the Airtable. So as with any MVP, like I just figured out, okay, what do I need to get this going? So it's student, there's different phases. So there's the student application, if you think about it, which I'll give you a preview later on. There's the student application process where people are applying, they want to get into the course. There's how we manage classes, which is basically how they register and then pay, how they discuss the lessons, how they book one-on-one with a mentor, how they find resources for the class, the Wikipedia, like our wiki. And then after like the class itself or after the course itself, there's getting a job. There's job applications, there's profiles, and then there's job boards. There's a job board. So our student profiles, how they apply for jobs. And then in the back of it, I labeled that wrong, but that should be internal. So there's going to be a bunch of slides that has the wrong label for that. But that's basically internally, we have email, CRM, payroll, internal tools. So let's figure it out. Like I'll figure it out as I go. So I started from the very top of the funnel, which is basically written application. So what I'll show you now is our stack, like how I figured all of these out. Like I wrote the stack even before I knew what it meant. Like because I was handy enough with the different tools, but I'll figure it out. Don't worry, it's not as intimidating as it looks. So it all starts it all starts with the website, which is the Webflow website, marketing website on Webflow. So but before I talk about all of that, all the connectors are powered by Zapier. So as you saw earlier, whether it's like there's a new member that signs up, there's a trigger on a different tool, and then we create a record in Airtable. That's our CRM. Where someone submits a new image, like on our Webflow site, like this, like our internal tool. Someone submits an image, like updates their image, profile image. We find the record of Airtable that they exist. So we match, we bind that. Yeah, like there's data hidden email. Tapos, yeah, we update that, and then we update the record in Airtable that sets up the ID with the new photo that was uploaded from Upload. Or whether it's like there's a new member that applied. So I'll talk about all of this, like how this connects everything. But essentially, this powers everything from our campus, which I'll talk about later, from our applications, and everything else. So there's many things there. So this connects everything. So this is super important. And also like a thing to take note is this as well, like our database, like the RCRM. So this is where everything goes. So this is just dummy data. So I can't, of course, show you the names and emails of our students, but essentially this is where we keep track of their payment method, their profile image, why they joined, and many other things like their preferences, whether it's like, it's kind of hard, of course, like there's no like UI layer yet, but you'll see how this all comes into play later on. Like, and we use Airtable, like this is our connector, this is where it all ends up. So everything from our applications to our student accounts to our design assessments to feedback from the kickoff or the weekly feedback or like assignments, absences, assessments. So this is where everything goes. Airtable is our CRM because we could manage it. So why not any other CRM out there? Because like I can use Airtable better. I can figure it out better. And then with Airtable, we can connect it to applications as well. We can send payment receipts to people, like whether it's an acknowledgement of payment. So here, for example, there, yeah, like we can send receipts just like this one, even issue receipt numbers where we've set it up on Airtable as well. So that's the core things in this, in what I'll walk you through. Like, just remember that everything's connected. Like every tool that we have is connected somehow with Zapier, and then all ends up in an Airtable, or it could be, in your case, a Google Sheet, but we like Airtable a bit better. So this is the Webflow site, right? Like seems like a fancy, nice site, and of course, like requires a bit more technical know-how, but essentially without the fancy background of the scroll, you could do a website like this very easily with Webflow. So I'll walk you through the Webflow, but the purpose of this is to inform what happens in UX Plus University, like why should apply, what's the benefit of it, the process of application, the curriculum itself, the schedule, the perks, the payment in USD and then PHP, comparisons to other courses, facts, and many others. But also, like what's more important is they get to this application. And then this application, if they answer all of this very well, it eventually ends up somewhere. So that ends up in our Slack. So here, like we have a Slack. It ends up here like this, just my sample answers. Basically, it all ends up in here. So we see each application as it goes in, and then also ends up in here in our application info table. So that's this form. The reason why it looks a little bit different is because this form is powered by Typeform. So Typeform is where we get all the questions, and then if there's like a bad answer somewhere in there, unfortunately, you must be 18 years old or older. So we've set up flows. So I've set up flows. So there's just 3 co-founders in UX Plus University. Someone that teaches, someone that manages partnerships, and then someone that does the code and like all of these sessions with product PH, marketing, everything, me. Yeah. So I'm the chief no-code officer as well. So basically, I've set it up so that it ends up here, or even if they have a dummy, let's do a dummy answer. Where's the email? I know I have a catch-all here, test@test.com. We've logged your IP address. We don't appreciate spam. So we technically we didn't really log their IP address, but we just want to scare them. But yeah, like we've set up Typeform to be smart enough so that that's our primary form. It has its own. You should possibly set it up really well to foresee things like that. You can see. I believe there's a. I'm not familiar with the new Typeform, but I believe there's the logic here there. There's a logic here. Like if they say one thing or the other, we've set up this logic, which is basically how no code works sometimes as well. So yeah, so that's powered. Like our application is powered by, like if I click unblock my IP, it's gonna be a Rickroll because they're spamming our application, so they deserve us spamming them as well. All right. So all of this is powered by, like that's an embedded Typeform in a Webflow site. So this is what I talked about earlier. There's the Webflow site, and essentially this is the most powerful tool we have, which is basically we can create things like these. So basically, say for example, I want a button here. That button, I want to change the color into something, or I want this to link to google.com. Google.com. And then if I preview it, it links to google.com, but the hover's like not working. Essentially, that's the idea. Like it's not as easy as I expressed it just now, but it's basically visual coding. You still need to know how to code. Essentially, you need the concepts of floats and display blocks and grids and sizes and position absolutes and position fixed and all of those. So you need the concept of code, but you're not essentially typing code itself. So that's how I was able to do all of this. And if I can open Figma, if I have Figma open, do I have it open? No. If I'll open Figma, it's almost exactly as how I've designed it. If you remember the screenshot earlier, Figma. UX Plus University. So of course, there's still like a workflow. This is still the highest fidelity of the process, but essentially, this is kind of like this, or we designed it first here. Like it's pretty much almost as close as possible as it is here, but we essentially coded it using divs, using container sections, link blocks, using Webflow. And then Webflow also powers our different pages. So our pages include our application form. So if you see our application form, this is what you saw earlier. And then this is the embedded type form. There's an iframe there that embeds the type form. Super straightforward. You should know some code, but not all code, essentially. So we have our design challenge over here as well, and then they will submit in a type form. So that's that. So there, that's our Webflow in type form, and we chose this because we can easily, without going through an engineer, yeah, like launch all of this super quickly, like possibly 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We control our own destinies as founders, essentially. Yeah, type form. So the next part, if I can go back to my keynote. The next part is, so that's written application, right? That's type form. Let's go to video application. What did we use? We used video ask. So video ask, our next step in our flow is, maybe later. Here, how students essentially appear, not just like answering in a format where it's straightforward, like answering a few fields in an essay format doesn't really show if they'll do well as UX designers. We want to see their communication skills. We want to see if they're really passionate about it. So Video Ask is this platform. It's a way to asynchronously interview people. So we're just 3 people when we started. But essentially, it's this, like, I'll click this, for example. Before we continue, we need your name, email, and then they're going to ask a question. I got 3 questions to know you better, blah, blah, blah. And then you record yourself. So there. So record yourself to answer the question. So it's allowing one-on-one conversations to scale. And since we had 100 applications in our first batch, we had to do this. We had to go through something like this, where we see people, and if they didn't pass or they didn't submit anything, that's already, they've filtered themselves out of the process. So initially we considered doing one-on-one calls with everyone, but essentially that's hard. So we wanted to scale. So we implemented video ask. So here is my, for example, video ask that I sent to students. So I recorded myself. So first, we'd like to know a little bit more about you. What's your background and where are you from? So, and then a bunch of questions just like that. Like, what's the background? Where are they from? I'm hearing something, which is weird. All right. Please mute yourselves just in case. Next. So I'm still hearing something. It might be Nicole from the group. If you can mute, there. Great. Okay, so essentially that's Typeform, that's video ask for us to scale applications. Let's proceed to the next part of our stack. We had Typeform for a design challenge again, and then registration, so member stack. So what's member stack? So member stack is this. So essentially, member stack allows us to have logins within um, logins within our systems. And also, it's our single sign-on that allows us, like once they've registered somewhere, it allows us to use that user account for other applications as well. So essentially, user accounts and profiles. So it's gated content, right? Like only students that have signed up and we verified can access certain content that we've created. Also, if you want, there's also secure payments. There's another gateway in there, right, to access revenue. So we use MemberStack to get all of these fields to essentially set up our accounts, have members, like, so this is their dashboard. Essentially, like add our branding. This member stack is layered on top of our registration for students registering. So this is where they register. So for example, that like confirm password. So I'll just walk through the Webflow so that it's easier. So there's the step one, and then they tell us more about themselves. So this is when we've accepted students already. They're telling us their preferences, which topics they're most excited about, their goals for the program. And then they upload their profile photos. And then they get to a dashboard where they can access, takes a while, they can join the class, or they can visit the wiki, or eventually visit our UX job board. So using the same login that we built in MemberStack, remember, like it's a login layer that we can put on top of Webflow, because Webflow just produces websites. Like students need to log in, right? Like without hiring an engineer or a developer or whatever, for them to set up like a login database, or like zero auth, like OAuth, or like any login system that allows logins, like, or even exporting Webflow so that they can build on top of like whatever tech stack. Like I'm using the native SaaS applications and then just making them talk to each other. So you can integrate your Webflow directly to MemberStack, and eventually you'll get to somewhere like this where you can log in to our campus. So I'll try to log in after, like, I've signed up already. And then I can view my profile. I can view my goals, or if I was a student, I can re-upload my image. And remember, this image is the image upload update, right? Like if they update over here, I'm going back to Zapier to send that information back to my master database, which has the profile photo, the passports, and everything else, like all the details. And all the answers here that were sent to MemberStack are also sent to my Airtable. So just in case I want to build a visual version of this, like say a more interactive student directory in the future, I have my database. Like I'm not talking to SQL, I'm not talking to any other system. Like literally, this is a no-code stack. So I'm like making tools speak to each other. So there you go. It's a lot, right? Like, but like that's what you have to do. If you don't want to hire an engineer, be an engineer. Join the class. So I'm gonna click join the class, right? So it's Classroom UX Plus. I'm gonna log out first. When they click join the class here, they're logged into our campus, which is powered by MemberStack. They can use the same logins. So this is, if you see api.memberstack.io, the same logins that allowed them to access campus allows them to access Classroom, which is Classroom is where we have all classes, all discussions. And then, so what is this Classroom? Like how is this the way it is? We use for our discussions, what's the next slide? Circle.so. So this is basically our own Facebook powered by Circle.so, which is a community platform for creators. Like it's essentially, you can do your class if you want. You can have discussions in there as well. Like whatever you want, like you can build on top of this. So let's say, for example, our slides and recordings. So class sessions are here, but we have our slides and recordings here as well. Say, let's go to one class. So if a student wants to rewatch a class, it's here. Let's go to something further earlier. Here. So the student orientation, for example, or let's go to maybe UX research day 1. So even in our classes, like we've tagged the chapters so that they can rewatch anything in our class. This is the recordings of the live sessions which we announce over here. What happens, and then we send the calendar invites as well. So something I forgot to talk about, which should be somewhere in here, like how we talk to our students is through ConvertKit. So we talk to our students using ConvertKit. That's where we track like everything, like the things we send out, like if we've sent it out, if they've opened it, things like that. Yeah, even the announcement of creating their account way back, like 4 months ago. Yeah, there. So where were we? We're in Classroom, and then Classroom, that's where we ConvertKit is how we send emails. In Classroom, they can talk to each other as well. And then also they can book a mentorship call, which is, I believe, is somewhere here. And then they can talk to their mentors. So we have 4 mentors in class. They can choose a time once a week with each mentor. We have guest speakers as well in our cohort. So everyone from product design leads to CXOs to UX researchers, they can talk amongst themselves. They can watch UX Plus conference videos. So that's a perk of UX Plus University. They can learn from Julie Zhu, who's the former VP of Design of Facebook, for example. Yeah, like learn. So all of those learnings are centralized in Classroom, at least for the students. So that's why we chose Circle.so, because if we chose Slack, it's going to be super fast and ephemeral. The messages there are going to be, it's hard to catch. So that's why we chose Circle, so that it's more of a forum where we can manage the discussions, the feedback, the everything, like from, we can give them tips, they can show their work, like they can teach each other, they can ask questions, and then we can introduce perks to them, so like 70% off Marvel app, for example, which is super cool. Vote for UXP1 special awards, like send reminders, send groupings as well, so things like that. And then they can also send us feedback, like submit their assignments, notify us for planned absences, send us any weekly feedback. They can access jobs as well. They're super cool. There. So if you saw there's a mentorship booking, book a mentorship. That's our next bit in our no-code Slack, which is Calendly. So this embedded thingy over here, Calendly is in there. We use Calendly to set all of those up for our mentors. Next, there's a lot in our UX stack, but we have this for our students. So aside from, of course, like we have our campus, right? Like where they get information. They can get templates that they can use for work. They can access their goodies, even access Zoom backgrounds that they want if they're attending class. Things like these that might not fit the classroom. And also everything from our code of conduct to guiding values, like long form content we have for internal students. We're using something like this. Looks like Notion, but this is actually powered by super.so, which we can build websites using Notion. So basically it's where we're using Notion. We just turn it into URL wiki.ux plus so that our students can just easily browse it and not have doesn't have to sign up Notion or elsewhere. Essentially, it could be, in your case, a help center. If you want to launch a help center super quickly, you can just use Notion with Super, and then you subscribe to Super and Notion if you already have it. And another thing as well is, like, we use Notion for our student profiles. So some of our students, like, this is what can I click there? Our students, like, talk about themselves, their experience, their projects. They add their projects here. They mention if they're seeking, not actively seeking UX roles, and then we share this to our hiring partners. So there. So we're in hiring already. We're almost done. Don't worry. It's a lot in our no-code stack. So I talked about the calendar, the wiki, job applications. So student profiles, I jumped ahead, but that's on Notion, and also you can do that with SuperSO as well. We use Hunter to get students jobs. So say, for example, here, this is a demo of Hunter, where they can track everything that they've, the progress of each student, essentially, like how many they've followed up, how many they've applied to. So this is how and where we manage the things that job seekers want, essentially. They can use a Chrome extension as well to save jobs, which is awesome. We can access metrics. So this is our tool for all of that. So we use Hunter for that. Again, this is student profiles. And then last part of our hiring stack, we have our job board that we're launching super soon. This is built on Webflow as well. So let's see, let's look at the job. Let's look at the job template itself. Essentially, anyone can post a job. They can post their salaries. They can send their job posts, and then also our partners will get access to this for free. So they can post a job as well, send information. This gets linked to our Airtable. This gets linked to our, this is connected by Zapier. So all of that's in there. And then we send this out to not just our students, but also the larger UX Plus UX Plus conference. UX Plus conference community. So some internal tools that we have. Lastly, so we've finished the job board, Notion, job board, Webflow. So we use, for email, we talked about ConvertKit, we talked about Airtable. For payroll, and then also internal tools, we use Deal to pay ourselves. So we are a US company. Something that I didn't mention, as a US company, we used to register as a US company, Stripe, Atlas. Okay, my Stripe, Atlas. So why did we register as a US company? Because so that we can get funding easier from companies like Y Combinator. So this is not no code essentially, but essentially it's still part of our stack to keep our startup running. So we registered in the States, and since we have contractors in the Philippines, we use Deal to send out the money, and then they can withdraw it, and however, like, they can transfer it to their bank accounts in less than a day, essentially. So we use Deal for that. Again, ConvertKit. We use for our US bank accounts. Once you register for Stripe, you can set up a US bank account for using Mercury, which is basically pays for all of these no-code tools and SaaS software. And I mentioned also we use we use Slack for our applications. We use Zoom for our classes. What else? That's pretty much it. So that's our stack. Hope you weren't too overwhelmed with it, and I would love to answer any of your questions if you have any.
There are actually a lot of questions in the chat right now. It looks like everybody's excited to get their answers in. First of
Sure.
all, thanks for the talk. For a second there, when you mentioned Skillshare, though, I was pretty sure the logo in the background user was just going to start playing along with Raid Shadow Legends. Before we get into the questions, I just want to say that's a great looking living room or room space thingy.
Yes.
Uh, is the UX Plus logo in the background the light fixture? Is that a one-off or is that for sale? Like, how do we get one of those?
It's a one-off. Like, there's an Instagram person that sells neon lights for cheap. This is just like 3,000 pesos or something like that. So you can customize your neon lights if you want.
Okay,
Yeah,
sounds like
it's
another
somewhere
no-code solution. Okay. Well, let's get right to it. There is a lot of questions here, but let's get to what the audience want to know about. First one is from Lara Gotes. um, uh, Wants to know how do we make sure that these no-code solutions work in the long term. And I was thinking about it too, because when you experiment with software and then finding out there was a better tool after that, have you personally experienced this as well, where you've gone in really deep with a particular solution with a vendor? You said, okay, I like them, I'm gonna be with them forever, and then next day, oh my God, there's someone better. Like, what is your process for
sure.
avoiding or future proofing some of your decisions?
Right. So, say for example, when we were considering how do we manage class, like, are we going to grade students? Are we going to, where do we send links? Like, is there a
Hmm.
solution out there? And there's many tools like tryvirtually.com, which is virtually is a way to manage cohort-based courses, live courses, right? There's
Right.
also local ones like Lion, Lyon, right? Like lion.com.ph, I believe, or something like that. There's like there's pre-existing tools. And then when we were considering it, I signed up for virtually and I didn't like the UX. I didn't like how it was
Mm,
a bit clunky. So as
okay.
with like launching any product, right? Like don't over invest in it. Like try it out.
Mm,
Like as with anything, like try it out, test it out, test the features, try to understand not just the cost or like this looks fancy, it has a fancy landing page. I'm gonna invest, like give it time, give it like 3 days, or like
mm-hmm,
decide right then and there if it goes against your like your must-haves, and then
mm-hmm,
also it doesn't have your must-haves, or it's lacking certain features, or goes against your principles, or what the product should be, or whatever.
mm-hmm,
Like
hmm.
decide super quickly or give it time. As with anything,
Okay.
don't overinvest. Like how I
Right.
started was just like, oh, we need a platform. I thought it was gonna be like in my projections, like if you're trying to sell to investors, right? Like you have to have projections. So I wrote all the software, and then like most of the first things I wrote there we weren't using eventually anyway. Like
Mm,
we didn't use, say for example, a live transcription tool. We didn't
right.
use virtually. We didn't use like any other tool. So yeah, just don't go in it with the mindset that you're gonna use this forever. Even like my stack right now, um it might not be the one I use for the next batch. Maybe not the next batch, maybe 3 batches from now, if we want things to fully scale, or if I want to delegate this to someone and they're not no code savvy. So either like I'm gonna fully invest in no code, and then I'm gonna hire no code operators, essentially,
Mm,
which there are not a lot of in the Philippines. Or
okay.
maybe I'll consider React and like full dev engineers. But that
Oh.
I haven't planned my business that I'll be hiring engineers. I don't see myself hiring engineers because
Right.
our core product is not our technology. Our core product is like how we teach our students. Technology just gets us closer there or makes us scalable. But then like the unit of economics of our stack right now, it doesn't scale
Hmm.
linearly. Like the software doesn't scale linearly. So essentially, we're paying the cost of one engineer, but then if we're adding like we're gonna do 3 batches at the same
Hmm.
time,
Hmm.
like our costs wouldn't rise a 1:1, for example. Like one
I
student,
see.
like one subscription. It's essentially like our no code stack is set. So the benefits of no code for us or whichever tool we use outweigh
Hmm.
the idea that let's just restart this or let's just hire a engineer altogether.
Hmm.
But going back to the question, it's mostly about just like having that MVP mindset. Like this is change. This is gonna change. This might change, or this will change. However you look at it, um, know what you're trading off right now by using a specific tool. Yeah, and be very aware if you're gonna change it, like what has to change along with it. So if I'm gonna change Airtable, I suddenly find a better app that like makes the human in the loop management of data better, then I have to think, wait, I have to reconfigure the connections of that in Zapier and also in Slack
Hmm.
and then in that.
Hmm.
So know the repercussions of each decision at least, and then also don't overinvest too much in an application because like it might die or it might like it might not be there the next day as well. Like these small or new no code apps.
Right, exactly. You've talked about a very interesting point, and it's related to one other question that we're seeing in the chat. Talking about what are some of the challenges you face when using no-code platforms. One in particular stood out for me when you said um, it's starting. It will get to a point where you're going to need no-code operators, or perhaps at some point you need to transition from one solution to another. Obviously, the investment you've already done in one solution, you'll have to migrate all of your database, have to make it fit with your current process. Um, what are some of the challenges you've been facing when using some of these no-code platforms?
So sometimes you don't get what you want from it.
Hmm.
So don't overcomplicate it, right? Like,
Right.
um, there are certain tools that are built, say, for example, to generate a certificate, say, image generators like Banner Bear or things like that.
Hmm.
So rather than me, like, I can try it out, maybe,
Okay.
but I'm usually going to stick with the tools I know or like say for example Google Suite. I know the like I know the ins and outs of Google Suite. Usually in their, like if you connect to Google Suite in Zapier, it shows a bunch of information that you didn't know that it could do. Say for example, if you have a Google slide, um, I didn't know before that it could generate a PDF, and that PDF can
Hmm.
be extracted, and then also if that PDF has a URL or a permanent URL, that means I can
Hmm.
attach that to an email. So things like that. Like I tend to lean towards tools that are either already established. I don't invest in, say for example, if there's a mobile app builder, it's
Hmm.
typically I'm not gonna test it out unless there's enterprise, they have enterprise clients already, or so there are a bunch of
Mm.
these like no code app builders.
Right.
um, yeah, like there's also other things that even if they have thousands of customers, I wouldn't still try it or like use it for my platform. Say for example, Bubble, because like their UX isn't there yet. So I know I'm foreseeing myself to be frustrated by using it. So I'd
Hmm.
rather go to Webflow, which I'm familiar with. I know the limitations. I just have to learn how to add, say for example, a membership stack on it. So that's member stack,
Mm.
like a membership layer on it. So I try to weigh which tools I choose, and I have my own set of criteria. It could
Right.
change if you're a early adopter. That's definitely good. If you want to use some tools that just got launched, like there's Play to build mobile apps. There's it's always new tools that are coming out. So I would lean towards, okay, like I'm just gonna connect things I know and have them talk to each other. It's mostly Airtable, Slack, Zapier, Google Suite. This seems easy enough. And try it out there first before trying to create use tools that you haven't heard other people use. Like say, not discouraging you, but like be very cautious of what tools you use.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I think experimenting, especially unless you get very lucky as an early adopter, there are a lot of solutions there that don't really solve anything. Oh, I said it. Sorry. That being said, it sounds that it's a combination of understanding what you're looking for and need, and then marrying it together with your style or personal preference. Like you said, oh, I think they're a great solution, but I don't like the UX. Like if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't matter how good it does the job. If it doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel
Mm.
right. Um, on that note, I'm relating this to one of the questions that we have. Carlo Valencia wants to understand when you designed this process or when you were preparing to use no code solution, what was your thought process in mapping out how you wanted the journey or how everything connected to each other? Do you try do things manually first, sort of manualification something, and then try to discover it's something that you can automate via Zapier or Zapier? Zapier, Zapier. um,
I think it's Zapier. Like I had that problem before, but it's zaps. Like when you zap something, you don't zap something. So it should be Zapier. So I don't know.
right, like okay, okay. It's settled, chat. We're going with Zap. It's Zapier. Okay. But yeah, back to you, Chris.
Um, I just dove in essentially. Like I mapped it because I was familiar with the tools. So I had a bunch of guesses in that map. So if I can share my screen again,
Oh yeah,
uh,
please go ahead.
there's a map. I believe there's a map here. I mapped it as if this is gonna be final, but eventually, like it didn't end up doing a student ID, for example, and then like using this or quizzes. Like we didn't end up making quizzes and then track grades. Like essentially, we went out of our way to not do that. We have icebreaker as well, which is now I believe that's a gather round for some of our synchronous video things for with our students. So essentially, like things change. This used to be like there used to be very different tools across these, but I was trying to get to an outcome. Like I wanted general things like a marketing site, a way to apply, a way for them to sign up, and then a way for them to get to class or and have discussions, and then jobs like that's the we're still building that. But then we have layers like that cut across like member stack that should be across different sites. But then we eventually found out that member stack is only per site, so that's going to make it difficult for us to like have jobs.ux plus uxpl.us, for example, that domain. So there are still problems with the tools that we're using. There are still like frustrations with member stack and that layer as well. They're still rebuilding right now for their new version. That's hopefully gonna be it's gonna be like one membership of one student across many domains. That's gonna allow that. So it's frustrating right now that we're pausing our development just because we're waiting for a no-code tool to update their feature set. That's
Oh, I see. Okay.
yeah, like that. It's there and it's in their pipeline, but like I'm gonna have a half-assed version I'm gonna release, or like it's not the most ideal URL. Like it's gonna be campus.ux plus slash
Mhm,
jobs.
mhm,
But
mhm,
then like if I think about it, it's not the most like students don't care. It's just like our vanity as product people and founders that has to be the perfect solution right away. So
mhm,
if I think about it, I'll just cross the bridge when I get there. And when I'm planning something, I just dive in. If it has the most, again, checks the most boxes, I'm gonna work with
mhm,
that. I know, for example, Webflow is at the end of this year is going to launch memberships by the end of this year,
Mm.
or also early next year. But it's going to be for their e-commerce membership. So like that's gonna throw a wrench in my no code stack. I'm gonna have to pull out of member stack and then go more native into Webflow and then
Okay.
rebuild that and then transfer the data. That's why like it's important to have all your data in an Airtable, because regardless
Mhm.
of whatever layer on top of that you add, like whatever no code tool you add on your CRM, you can import post post change the data, whatever's in your Airtable, like wherever you store all your information. So you have to trust a little bit as well. And if you're doing enterprise tools, like no code might not be the way to go because of like data privacy
Mhm.
concerns and things like
Mhm.
that. But like if you just want to launch an idea and then you're savvy enough to play around with like Zapier, like you can probably launch an idea quickly or validate or like yeah, and then you don't even have to use Webflow. You can use Card. I believe it's CAR. I'm not sure if it's a bunch of R's or a bunch of D's, but it's card.com. I'll paste it in the chat after I search it right now.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's like a landing page builder tool, and then you can just oh yeah, it's carrd.co. There. So you can use that as a landing page builder. You don't have it doesn't have to be fancy, a fancy Webflow site. So you can think about it that way. Yeah. Like these are interchangeable tools as long as you have your all your data in one place and you know how to um import it, export it, that should be enough.
Got it. Um, there are several questions coming up next that I think you've already touched on in that last reply. And I'm just going to go through them in order of when we receive them and see if
Sure.
we've missed something. It says here, what do you do when you need specific behavior outcome that isn't available in SaaS? I think we covered that when you said you just have to uh, when you mentioned that it feels like some of these solutions are now intertwined with the fate of your own product. If they're not offering the solution, you either just wait or you start shopping for another product or solution that can help you.
Yes.
Uh, okay. Um, Billy asks, do you agree that no code solutions can cause technical debt? I think it touched upon what you mentioned earlier that yeah, it will get to a point, right, where it's just not enough to cover what you need for the business. Is that right?
Yeah. Eventually, like if it's a highly um it's say for example if you're building a marketplace,
Hmm.
so there's buyers, there's sellers, and then you use no code tools. You could totally use no code tools for that. You could use
Hmm.
Webflow, and then you can use member stack, and then you could be fancy with it. There's logins and everything. There's a different login view for a seller and then a different login view for a buyer. There's a directory where you can see both like both information or like both taxonomies or like it's talking to each other or whatever, right?
Right.
But then if you want this to be like a funded startup or like a venture backed startup, I mean, like, and then the expectation there is that you're gonna use the money to hire engineers. Like essentially what you're building is a highly effective MVP that might not be scalable if you want to hire more than that. But I'm taking a stance in our company that we're not a technology company. Like essentially our MVP can last us a long time, and if you just want to build MVPs, which is like what's the most important when you're building product, like adoption, right? Like product market fit, right? So if you're trying to get to product market fit, do you really have to hire engineers, or can you deal with this technical debt? That's why it's
Right.
paid, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to pay it some other time, like pay the
Yep.
debt some other time? That's what you're trying to trade off by going no code. Eventually, if you really foresee it that you'll transition into hiring engineers, is your problem hiring engineers, or is your problem getting your product out the door? I think the more important problem is getting the product out the door, right? So if you don't want to bother with the engineer part, and you can possibly hack your way around to a solution that kind of works, and you have a designer friend, then these no code solutions might work for you. It worked for us because I'm a designer, and then I'm technical. I can't code for shit, but like I know CSS, HTML, CSS.
Hmm.
Like that's enough for me to handle Webflow. Like I know the floats and like fixes and like whatever. Um, so like my skill sets work best for Webflow, but that doesn't mean if you don't know HTML CSS, that doesn't mean you can't like do no code. You can use card, like you can use drag and drop
Hmm.
tools. You can even use
Hmm.
Squarespace to build a membership site. You can launch a community with just circle.so and use their native logins. Um, you don't have to use MemberStack. So I showed like a very fancy interconnected web of no code tools because I can, but like I'm like I want that technical debt. Give it to me. Like
Okay.
I want to
Okay.
maximize it, but then the other side of it is like not everyone's gonna be comfortable with the amount of like
Hmm.
things I'm keeping in my head,
Hmm.
right? Like if knock on wood, like if something happens to me, then our software like our product is essentially not the best product out there. And essentially, like when I think about it, our product is not me. Like our product is our lectures, which is built by many people, and our like a program, right? Like I'm just a support layer for all of that. I make the application process easy, but then if something happens to me, it's not as if like I hid away the logins. Like someone can come in and figure that out. So yeah, I'm not too concerned, but you have to weigh your own context and your own pros and cons of should you go no code, and also give it like a reason why you're going no code. Am I just gonna launch a product? Is that what's the most important right now, or am I gonna stop myself because I haven't found the CTO? Right. So you can think about that to an extent.
Hmm. No, that makes a lot of sense, especially that statement about, well, what really is your goal? Um, uh, and sometimes it all boils down to getting your product out the door and getting your users to start using it. Um, that's why we call it a minimum viable product, guys. It only has to work once. No, it only has to pass QA once. No, I'm just kidding. All the QAs there hard
What
rolling their
what QA? What's QA?
eyes. Exactly, exactly. All the developers there inside the chat right now, hard rolling their eyes upwards, saying, "Oh my God, he's one of those guys. He probably thinks Excel is a database." That's right. Excel is a database. How dare you? I've used it. Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on. Here's another question from someone in our chat. They want to know. Oh, yeah. They want to
How
know,
much?
how long did it take for you to come up with the logic and connections for your no code process to build UX plus? I'm gonna think this is UX plus University chat.
Yeah.
Okay. And which was the most difficult connection to do, and how did you solve it?
Right. So possibly like connecting everything to weeks. Um, the website itself, because it's like it has fancy animations, I spent longer. But that's not part of the no like I because that's because I wanted to do that, not because
That's where the
like
money is, the fancy
yeah,
animations, obviously.
the fancy animations and then like all the visuals.
Yeah.
That took probably a month, but then like just the connection between the website, the Typeform, Circle.so, Airtable, member stack, that's 2 weeks, possibly like the bulk of the work within 1 week. The most difficult is getting member stack to work. Like it's the most frustrating thing, like the logins of students.
Right.
Essentially, I could have I could have launched without member stack. It's not the most critical thing. But what I
Mhm.
wanted to do is like I wanted students to sign up to something and then upload information and then use that login. They already have a login, even though it's not necessary for Circle. Like I could have launched with Circle by inviting people manually in that forum. But
Mm-hmm.
then what I wanted to do is for them to create an account. In that account, I can and essentially build in the background like, oh, use the same account. Remember the account that you signed up for 4 months ago? Now we've
Mm-hmm.
launched job board. Use the same account, or we've launched this. Use the same account. So that was more of an investment on my end. So I wanted to do it, but like it's super frustrating. Like member stack seems easy. There's a bunch of videos on YouTube on how to create a membership website, which is basically a membership website is a website that has registration and login, and then within after they've logged in, there's gated content that not everyone can see. Only logged in people can see. So that whole concept
Oh,
of like them having to register and then having a
right.
login account and then them using that single sign-on to access Classroom, which was the
Mm-hmm.
forum earlier, and then them using that to use for the job board, the eventual job board will launch.
Okay.
That was the most frustrating part of like, okay, like
That is a lot
it's
of
so
hoops.
stressful. Yeah,
It's a lot of hoops.
yeah,
Okay, okay. No, 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 that makes sense. Uh, Touching on that item though, when these products or these no-code solutions you're using come with these updates, or you want to know if they're going to build something, are you investing a substantial amount of time being on customer support chat, asking these questions and saying, "Dear God, please make a job board now, save me from
yeah.
the technological hell that I am in."
Uh, it's more of like I'm involved in the community. It's like it's
Hmm.
rather than like
Their
seeing
product
as
community. Their product
their
community.
product community.
Okay.
Like so I joined like the on deck no code cohort just to like be like have the right mindset when using no code, like be in touch with others that use no code, like
Yep.
experience the problems they're experiencing and also like solutions that they might come across before I have, like I'm gonna get it from them. So being part of these communities, whether it's like product communities like product ph, which is awesome, right? The no code community, they have their own like hashtag no code on Twitter. They have different Slack groups as well. So it's its own like beast. Just like with UX, like I'm involved with different UX communities. I'm involved with no code as well, and that's where I get to learn others. Like after going through on deck, like I joined Webflow as chapter leader as well. So I do Webflow events for them. So essentially, like that gives me some perks that they either not just like monetary perks, but also I get access to their Webflow Webflow user group in Slack. So I get early access to whatever update they have. Also in Circle, I'm part of their forum, so I get early access to their live chat feature in their forum, for example.
Hmm.
So things like that. Like it's mostly it's not a job or it's not should be in your to do list. It's just like be part of
Yep.
communities where conversations happen, and then you'll
Right.
you'll get the benefits of whether you're fully involved or you're just lurking. Yeah, you'll get some benefit from it.
Got it. Okay. One last question, since it's already 8:30. Because there is a lot of technology or no code solutions already interconnect with each other, are you getting near that point where you have to say, okay, I need someone to actually manage this and start looking into the future because I need to focus on the business
Being
part
a
of
founder.
the product now. Oh, you're exactly being a founder, finding money and not going insane. Are you near that point where you need to say, "Oh, please take this from my
Yeah,
hands. Please save
but by near I mean like 3 months ago. Yeah, like I was at that point.
me."
Yeah, but
It's in
I
the
mean
past.
it's hard.
It's in the
It's
past.
hard. It's hard to find no code people. They're
Mhm.
mostly spread out like across the world. It's still a small community.
Right. Right.
Um, I wish I could. Like I tried pirating people from On Deck, for example, or like wherever. Like they have a bunch of
Mhm.
great no code people. Um, I wanted to, but it's hard. It's hard to look for people that have the passion to manage like tools that are talking to each other. So yeah, like aside from that answer, like there's a bunch of other quick things here. So rapid fire. How much is it?
Hmm.
It's $1,000 probably a month to sustain this, which seems expensive if you think about it. But if
Okay.
you think about the cost of an engineer, which is probably $2,000 a month or more, or four
For
thousand
two
dollars a month,
engineers? Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
like all of those, like then like these no code tools become cheap.
Okay.
Um, Other tools, like how did you get your co-founders to understand how to use no code tools? Like it is what it is. Like it's what I'm
They don't
using.
have a choice.
No other choice. Um, yeah, neon lights I put in chat. It's boxystudio.ph. I believe that's most of it. You can message me if you have other questions.
No, that's perfect. We have the whole show recorded and we will be publishing it so that everybody can watch it again. We'll include some of the links that we've been showing today. We want to thank you, Christian. We had a great time. That was a great talk. We really learned a lot about no code. Speaking of codes, though, if you're looking for a PlayStation code, it's 50% off now for the annual subscription. Just wanted to share that to everyone because this is my favorite solution ever. Okay. Well, before we wrap up, are there last minute tips you want to give to the team, Christian? Maybe have them check out on deck if they want to start learning about no code solutions.
Oh, right. So if you want to start to learn at least no code, right now, you can you can go to no code ph, which where most of the discussions about no code happens. Like it has probably 1,000 members or something, 1,000, like 1.5K members. Outside of that, yeah, just join Twitter, like hashtag no
Hmm.
code if you want to learn. If you want to learn UX, it's uxpl.us. You can Google me, or you can search for me on Facebook if you want to add me up, or like in Twitter. Yeah, like that's pretty much it. Tips, yeah, just get started. Try connecting something to Slack using Zapier. So whenever someone
Slack
subscribes
is
to
the way.
HubSpot,
Yeah.
yeah, like someone subscribes to HubSpot, connect
Hmm.
it to Slack, or HubSpot to Zapier to Slack. Or like someone sends an inquiry to you, connect it to Slack, and then you see the benefit of it, and then make it a public channel so everyone sees. Like basically, you're surfacing information, which is the easiest way to get some value from no code. Essentially,
Right.
that's doesn't seem no code, but if you know how to throw information from one place to another, you can throw anything from one place to another, like images, whatever. Input, there's output. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for those tips. Thank you for your time, Christian. Thank you for your time, everyone in the show today. If you want to know more, we'll be sharing some of the links to Christian, the UX Plus University, because he was not kidding when he said UX is very, very hot right now. Quick search saw me a lot of job results from Caliber. I got up to page three. I mean, I don't know who gets to page three on Google. Perhaps somebody with a fixation on pages. I don't know. But we've got the link shared here. We'll have you connected. If you want to know more, reach out to Christian. You can find him on LinkedIn, Facebook, and we will be sharing some of his social media and his channel so you can follow him. Follow UX Plus and UX Plus University. Before we leave, I want to thank the people helping us in the show today. Thank you, Christian. Thank you, everyone who joined us. We are looking for volunteers. If you are interested in joining us, contact admin at productph.org. We'll try to be as no code as Christian is because, well, we can't code for our life anyways. But I think that's all the time we have for the show today. Again, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Audrey, Keith, and John, Jan. Christian, and again, everybody who's joined us for Product PH. Looking forward to seeing everyone again in our next show. Thank you. Have a great evening, everyone.
Bye. Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.